really need a section. Even though I have this big image that I started with, I can already start to identify kind of where this pattern, where it's a pattern. Obviously, there's the more of that pattern that I create for the tile, the less evident it's going to be. But on something like a small prop, like a wicker basket or something, I can just grab the smallest section possible and create the tile from that. And in the end, I could have something that's as small as a 1024 by 1024, and it would be more than enough texture resolution to fit into something that's next gen with enough repetition. Okay, it would have to tile 10, 20 times, depending on the size of the asset, but it's still going to look very crisp. Okay, so I'm just going to bring out my crop tool and crop this down, and I'm trying to find an area that where this repeats. If I hold the shift key, I can grab a perfect square, and so I'm going to hold shift to start and kind of grab out an area. Okay, and I can still move this around. I'm moving the image so I can still interactively change where my crop is. I have not cropped yet until I push enter. And I can see that it usually tiles, or excuse me, there's 3 rings or rows here to every 2. Okay. And I kind of want to hit that. And then there's 2 this way. So what happens if I kind of unsquare this down right here, and I bring this one in right there. And again, you can pick any section. You can do a larger section, maybe a smaller section. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Again, that doesn't matter to me. Okay. Obviously, I made this so it's not perfectly square now. That could be an issue. With something like this, it's not too much of a problem because I might get a little bit of stretching, but no one's ever going to notice. If I need to get this back square, again, image size, image size. This link right here keeps the aspect ratio. I'm going to unclick this, and I'm just going to bump this up to 512 by 512. Okay, so I've stretched this out in the width.
Wait, how do you turn that off?
You just click the icon. So
it's weird. Fine. It's definitely not.
So if you click it, it will unlink the 2. So it's a little bit different than past Photoshop. Past Photoshop has had a button that says keep aspect ratio. Right now it's a link. This is a little bit more visual.
Yeah.
Visually represents what you're actually doing versus a checkbox. And I'm just going to hit OK. So I've actually increased the size of my image by, what, 40% or so. I will always work bigger than my final output, just like a painting. It's a lot easier to paint something that looks nice when I can do a broad stroke, and that broad stroke is nothing but, in the end, a small pixel. So that eyeball is just some big stroke that I was able to do, and it's only this, in the final image, it's only this big, versus getting down, if you see like people who are illustrators, they'll paint in a very confined area in a very small, tedious way. In traditional illustration, in a way it's very difficult. If you watch any more recent illustrators that do digital stuff, they work on a much larger canvas, they're able to paint much broader, and then in the end, the output ends up being a smaller one. Hey, Alex, can you grab the door? Thanks, dude.
What if you cannot find a repeating part?
Well, if you're starting with the same image that you download, there's a repeating part. And it's not going to repeat perfectly. There's some work that we have to do to get this to tile in an acceptable manner. And part of this is just to show you some of the tools and stuff. Honestly, if I was going to create this tile for an actual game, I probably wouldn't start with a photo, because the amount of touch-up work that I would have to do to get to a level where I would consider it acceptable for a shipped product wouldn't take me as much time to go in and just hand paint this myself. and to get the maps and everything that I want. But sometimes you can find things that are, is a good starting point, and the same thing is I point you to a bunch of sites that have images and textures that might just be a good starting point to get something from, to work from, so you don't have to start with a completely blank slate. Here, for the most part, I want you to work this as a photo image and not recreate it from scratch. I'm not there are some things like these highlights, obviously in any type of image where there's a highlight that's very prominent like this, it's something that you'd want to remove, because if you don't, what are you going to do when it gets dark or light actually hits it from another angle? Well, here I have a baked-in highlight that's not necessarily there. Okay, so I need the normal map and the specular map to control that. I don't want that baked in. Okay, not saying that's not the case. Like if you play any games like on the Wii or any handheld, a lot of times we do bake in highlights based on like the top down or a certain direction. It probably would not be this hard. It would be something very subtle to do it. Like in League of Legends, if you make a League costume, you will bake lighting in on the character based on the view of where you play to pop the character a little bit more. There's not a real-time lighting that's affecting the views of that character.